Mr. Picardo, thanks for joining us.
Good evening.
You've talked this deal up, but is there not a strong chance it could be rejected by one or both of Spain and the UK parliaments?
Well, I doubt that this is something that is going to be rejected by any parliament around Europe other than potentially the British Parliament. The key issue is whether it gets out of the blocks at all at the weekend at the Special European Summit, which is going to be held in Brussels. And at the moment, although this is a qualified majority measure, Spain is saying it's going to vote against it. That would not immediately bring the measure down, but the political declaration is one that the EU wants to see move by consensus, and both the withdrawal agreement and the political declaration go together. And I think there is still, in the context of European negotiations and European brinkmanship, 72 hours is a very long time indeed. So I doubt that the Gibraltar issue will be the final issue on the table on Sunday. I don't know whether there will be others by that time that will still require resolution, and whether or not the withdrawal agreement then is approved and signed is, I think, the first question. Once it is, and you'll see that the Prime Minister May says if it comes back after the weekend, then once it is in the British Parliament for a meaningful vote, then there's a lot of issues to consider to see whether that meaningful vote will be one that can be surpassed by this agreement, at least on the first time of asking, or whether it goes back for a second meaningful vote, or what happens thereafter if there is no approval from the Commons.
OK, and coming up on Sunday, the 27 EU leaders are set to sign off on a separate declaration on Sunday, which has not been negotiated with Britain and which will cover Gibraltar, unlike the political declaration. Should Gibraltar be concerned that Spain, well, this will effectively uphold Spain's veto over the future relationship?
Well, what you're talking about there is just one alleged potential way of resolving the issue that Spain has in relation to Gibraltar, which has emerged during the course of this week. That, I think, is a report in one of the relevant websites, which is telling us what some EU diplomats are talking about. I think there's actually a different measure in place that might be agreeable, which might resolve matters, which is agreeable to Gibraltar, to Spain and to the United Kingdom, and may not require last-minute action on Sunday by the 27 in the way that is being suggested. What you do have is a political declaration that has emerged today and which does not have a reference to Gibraltar in it, which is what Spain was insisting on in the past 48 hours. So you've got a sealed, or closed rather, withdrawal agreement legal text, and Article 3 and 184 read together have caused Spain concern. And you've got now a political declaration where Spain sought to include some references which might have dealt with that issue, and there is no mention of Gibraltar in the political declaration, as we expected, so there has been nothing inserted, which is negative for Gibraltar in that process. So all of those documents now are the ones which we must concern ourselves with. There may be a lot of other statements, declarations, etc. This is normal when treaties are being agreed, which may emerge between now and Sunday. We have to ensure that nothing which emerges is detrimental in any substantial or material way to Gibraltar.
Hopefully still cause to be optimistic. What is in the memorandums of understanding? What is Gibraltar conceding, and is it worth it?
Gibraltar's conceding absolutely nothing. That's the reality. There's no concessions on jurisdiction, sovereignty or control. And when you read the memorandums, and I'm very much looking forward to publishing them, because whilst we don't publish them, there is a lot of speculation. But of course, this is a process and the texts have to stabilize and be translated. And then we have documents that we can publish. You will be able to make an assessment for yourself, and so will every one of your viewers, that there is actually nothing in there other than the things that you will have heard successive chief ministers of Gibraltar say we want to cooperate on with the Spanish, and in particular with the European Union, and in respect of our area, Spain. So once that assessment can be made, people will say, right, these are the things we are doing. A lot of them are exactly the things that we've been wanting to do. Some of them are the things that we do already, because a lot of what happens now is that the memorandums talk about how we continue to do these things for the period of transition, all until the 31st of December 2020. No longer than that, unless the transitional period is extended. The tax agreement, which is not one of the memorandums, goes on for longer because we want that to continue, although we can get out of it by giving notification on a 6-month basis. And so those, I think, are good things for Gibraltar, which put us in a stronger position in the context, in particular, of the criticisms that we've seen of Gibraltar by Spain in the past. By having agreements on those areas of criticism, we take away the opportunity for Spain to use those arguments against us internationally.
Okay, and finally, so when will the memorandums be published, and who decides when this happens?
Well, it's not a decision that is made by any one of the parties. It's a joint decision, you see, because when you have to check the text to make sure that all the cross-referencing is right, etc., then you've got to check with each other that the changes that might need to be made as a result of cross-referencing changes, etc., are acceptable. Then you have to translate, and you have to have a final agreed version. And when we say we have now final agreed versions of the texts, we're then able to publish. I'm very keen to publish, if possible, before Sunday, even if signature does not happen then, so that people can see the text even potentially before they are signed and the assessment can start. And I've told members of the opposition on the Brexit Select Committee that as soon as I have the stabilised text, I'm going to let them have them in confidence so that they can start making the assessments for themselves on what the texts say.